It's Monday, March 3rd, 2014, and let's talk about what happened this weekend over at XDADevelopers.com. First up, as usual, device and ROM update news. Now, we've mentioned over the last few weeks, actually month or so, that several different Galaxy Note 3 devices have started receiving updates to Android 4.4.2. And if the Samsung Open Source Center website is to be believed, the T-Mobile variant should be the next in line. They've gone ahead and released the source code for the T-Mobile variant over on their open source Dev Center site. So in theory, it should just be a matter of time, or potentially a matter of T-Mobile saying, yeah, go ahead and push it out. One way or another, though, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about maybe some of the differences between the T-Mobile variant and some of the others, you can take a look at the Samsung Open Source Center website to get some more information, or you can head on over to the forum discussion thread. Links to that will be available down in the video description at the portal post that you can find. Moving right along, speaking of devices in families that have already started receiving the KitKat update, but not quite everybody has yet, the T-Mobile variant of the LG G2 is now apparently receiving the 4.4.2 update as well. However, it is not an over-the-air update. It's coming as a 1.5 gigabyte, and that's a whopping size there, KDZ file that you have to flash to your device. So that kind of sucks for the people that don't know how to flash their devices, for the everyday users and things like that. Generally, I'm going to assume that doesn't concern the grand majority of you guys, but if you do have that T-Mobile G2 and you're interested in flashing it, just beware, it's going to take a little while to get that downloaded, and when you flash it, you're going to get a newer version of Android, you're going to get a newer kernel 3.4, but it's going to wipe out your custom recovery if you have one installed, so just kind of take that with a grain of salt. Speaking of LG devices getting a little bit of KitKat love, there's been a thread going on since October talking about KitKat coming to the LG Optimus G Pro, but up until this point, there's not been a whole lot of actual activity in that thread, until XDA forum member Sean Muka24 apparently sent his Optimus G Pro off for service and got it back with a beta build of KitKat 4.4 on there. And from what he said, the service person from AT&T has told him, yeah, it's coming soon. It's not available yet, it's not over the air, obviously, but if you're on AT&T and you have the Optimus G Pro, you might want to just take a look at this forum thread for some more details. You might want to just be on the lookout. It could be coming soon. And at this point, they have already managed to extract the system partition from the device that had 4.4 on it, so it is just a matter of time before maybe some sort of a flashable update will be made available if that's something you'd like to try out. And actually, speaking of LG and their devices and some cool updates coming, one of the things I mentioned in the Mobile World Congress video I made last week was that some newer LG devices are going to be coming with 4K video and 120 frames per second video. Well, apparently XDA recognized contributor Jishnu Sir has figured out a way to bring those sorts of functionalities to the stock camera on other LG devices. Specifically, this is in the LG G2 forum, but the story itself talks about just LG devices in general. So if you're running potentially the Optimus G Pro, or maybe even some of the LG variants like the Nexus 4, Nexus 5, with some minor modifications, this kind of thing might work for your device as well. So I do recommend taking a look at that forum thread as well. It is a bit of a manual process, but it doesn't appear to be terribly complicated and involved. I'm really curious to see how 4K and 120 frames per second video would work on the G2. It's a very powerful device, but at the same time, I don't know. The Galaxy Note 3 handles it pretty well, and the differences between the Note 3 and the G2 are not enormous, other than RAM. But one way or another, if you have an LG device at the very least, head on over to that thread to get the details on that. And speaking of items that got announced at Mobile World Congress and having some updates from that, thanks to XDA recognized developer a firmware dump for the Sony Xperia Z2 containing Android 4.4.2 has been made available. Now obviously, since not really anybody has their hands on the Z2 at this point, it's not going to be terribly useful, but at least you can kind of dive into it and see what makes it tick and see if there's any sort of goodies that you can rip out and port over to other devices. And actually, speaking of ripping things out, porting things to other devices, something like that, XDA senior member Kasia Malaga has put together a guide on how to root and get all of the Google services installed on the Nokia X. So if you're in one of those countries that actually has the Nokia X available at this point, and you've got your hands on one, definitely go take a look at his thread. It seems to be, again, relatively simple and straightforward. The root itself is done using Framaroot, and then it's some moving files around and rebooting, and that's about it. And the thing about that I just find really, really awesome, and apparently it was awesome enough to make another portal post about, is that the Nokia developer team actually came out on Twitter, saw what happened, that Kasia Malaga had gone ahead and gotten it rooted and gotten the Google Play services installed on it and everything. The Nokia developer team replied to him and said, and I quote, "This is awesome, very excited to see progress is being made. We actually really like XDA developers." Ding! That is definitely how you should respond to a developer. When they do something like this, that's not really breaking anything, it's not really throwing it up in your face or anything like that. When they're doing something to add more functionality to your device, you should definitely applaud that and give 2 thumbs up, and we give 2 thumbs up in response. And the last thing to mention, some new forums were added on XDA this weekend, specifically for some more things that got unveiled at Mobile World Congress, including the Nokia X, the HTC Desire 816, the LG G Pro 2, the G2 Mini, and the Xperia M2. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about any of those devices, or just getting in touch with other people that might be picking them up when they become available, head on over to the forum. You can find the link to all of the stories that I talked about down in the video description, including that one as well. You can also find links to my YouTube channels down at the bottom of the video description as usual. And remember, if you like this video, hit that like button down below the video. You can subscribe to us to receive all of our content as soon as it becomes available. Thank you so much for watching though, and I will see you again next time.